although this inmate can accept having spent the next 8 to 12 years of her life in prison. What does truly break her heart is that her engagement to the most amazing girl she has ever met is now almost certainly over. Her fiancé told her she was not sure whether or not she was willing to wait more than 5 years for her to get her freedom back. So now that she might be locked away for more than twice as long, it is quite clear the relationship has come to an end. And what hurts most of all about that is that she has absolutely no one to blame for it but herself. She could have married the love of her life, but instead she just had to make a bunch of stupid decisions and get herself incarcerated for about a decade. And while she now has to live in cuffs and chains, a woman she loves will move on and find someone else to build a life together with. It is devastating, but unfortunately for her, she will simply have to learn to live with it. These are the consequences of her very own actions. After having just been strip searched, then putting on a striped uniform, and now getting her mugshot taken, this young woman is ready to serve her first weekend in jail. And she sure hopes she is able to get used to it, because she will have to endure this for every weekend for the next 10 months. Every Friday afternoon she must turn herself in. Every Saturday and Sunday she will fully spend behind bars. And then on every Monday morning she gets released again. She is certainly not happy about it, but unfortunately for her, she will just have to accept it. That is because she agreed to this as part of a plea deal. She does have to spend significantly more time behind bars now due to this deal, but it was the only way she would get to sit out her punishment on the weekends. Whether or not it was the right decision, she really doesn't know. But she will simply have to live with it, since it is too late to do anything about it now anyway. Even though she is incarcerated for a white-collar crime, this woman still has to go to court in this set of high-security restraints, like she is some dangerous, hardened criminal, fully chained up and with her hands stuck in these so-called tubes, completely helpless. And all because she had one too many towels in her cell. Apparently, that counts as contraband, and is reason to have to endure these overly strict security measures. It is humiliating. And what makes it even worse is that having to appear before the judge like this is definitely not going to help her case. Who knows how much more time behind bars she has given herself simply because she didn't count how many towels she took. This short and stubby young woman is clearly not a physical threat to anyone, yet she still has to be stuck in these restraints for every single court appearance. Having cuffs tightened around her wrists, which are locked to a chain firmly wrapped around her waist, along with having her ankles securely shackled together as well. Like this, she is made awkwardly waddle around in public with plenty of cameras all pointed at her. It is humiliating and makes her feel so utterly pathetic and helpless. Unfortunately for her, though she has no choice but to just endure it. She is an inmate now, so she will just have to accept whatever degrading treatment she is made to undergo. It is part of her punishment. This is simply what she deserves. In an attempt to get full custody of her children, this woman had her current husband murder her ex-husband. But clearly things didn't go as planned, because now here she is in a degrading orange jail uniform and helplessly locked in restraints. She is not only facing decades in prison, but she is also basically guaranteed her children will never speak to her again. She will have to sit out her lengthy sentence, knowing those whom she loves most are not waiting for her to get released. If anything, they probably want her to have to live in cuffs and chains for the rest of her life, locked away and slowly being forgotten. And she will simply have to learn to live with that, to live with the consequences of her actions, and endure the miserable fate she deserves. With their wrists tightly zip-tied together, these young protesters are discussing which of the cops they hope is going to pat them down. They see some very cute officers whom they definitely wouldn't mind getting felled up by, especially not with their hands helplessly stuck behind their backs. It does make both of them feel kind of trashy taking about this. But on the other hand, since they are under arrest anyway, they might as well just try to enjoy it a little too. It is not every day you get tied up, frisked, and jailed after all. This woman is incredibly grateful for the leniency the judge has just shown her. For quite some time she had figured she would be spending the next 15 years, or so of her life in prison. But now, as it turns out, If she behaves herself, well, she will already get to have her freedom back over only 5 years. Of course, that is still a long time to be incarcerated, but she humbly accepts that as the punishment she deserves. She understands that her actions do need to have consequences, so she is just glad she won't have to pay for her mistakes for the better part of 2 decades. Living in cuffs and chain for 5 years is already going to be hard enough. Unequivocally, being a murderer is already a terrible struggle for this young woman to come to terms with. How does one live with themselves after having done the unforgivable? So now, also be sentenced to life in prison is about to make her truly lose her mind. She does not deny it is what she deserves, but of course having to spend the rest of her life stuck in a small cell block is not exactly easy to take in. She will never get a chance to redeem herself. She will never get to move on from her wrongdoings. For the rest of her life, she will have to pay for what she did, locked away from anyone and anything she ever held dear, made to live in cuffs and chains without a day of release to ever look forward to. It is a miserable and pathetic fate, and to know she really has no right to feel sorry for herself only makes it ever more unbearable. After having just turned herself in, this young woman feels quite miserable in this holding cell. She has to sit out a sentence of 4 months, and she sure hopes the cell she is going to be housed won't be as small and barren as this. Unfortunately for her, though, she will just have to accept whatever conditions she is made to endure. Incarceration isn't meant to be pleasant after all. It is a punishment. Although this young lady is not happy about getting locked up for the umpteenth time now, it does warm her heart to see the jail staff is disappointed in her for ending up behind bars yet again. They seem to genuinely not like having to lock her in cuffs and chains. They want better for her. They want her to live in freedom. And on one hand, it makes her feel quite guilty for disappointing them like this. But on the other hand, it does feel great to have her jailers rooting for her. It really helps to know the strict and harsh disciplining she will have to endure is born out of a genuine desire for her to turn her life around. So although she promised them this 2 times before already, now she promises this really going to be the last time she gets locked up. Unfortunately, though, it will probably take quite a long time before she actually gets her freedom back and will get to try and prove herself. Being made to pose for a mugshot is something this young arrestee knew she would not be able to avoid, unfortunately. A humiliating picture of her was going to be taken and published online with her full name and charges no matter what. Although something she figured she would be able to talk herself out of was having to wear a degrading striped uniform for said picture. Hence she tried to convince her jailers to first let her take her mugshot before being made to change into her inmate attire. Sadly for her, though, that was just not up for discussion. As long as she is in custody, she will simply have to do as she is told, no matter how much she doesn't like it. Objecting, even when doing so very carefully and respectfully, will only result in the jail staff running out of patience really quickly. Unfortunately for her, she did not realize that on time, and when she still tried to obey, it was already too late. Guards used physical force to put her in her uniform, and then firmly strapped her down in a restraint chair. Her mugshot is now 100 times more humiliating than she even could have imagined. This degrading picture is now always one of the first things an employer or a Tinder date or whoever else sees whenever they Google her name. And sadly, there's absolutely nothing she can do about that. From being a jailer to getting jailed herself, this former corrections officer may try to keep her head up high, but she clearly feels utterly humiliated by what she's gotten herself into, having ended up the exact same as all the inmates she used to look down on every single day. The useless lowlifes, troubled addicts, pitiful nutjobs, and despicable monsters. She is one of them now, and she has to endure the same cruel and humiliating fate she made them endure, constantly getting barked orders at, having to let herself get locked in cuffs and chains, and being made to undergo dehumanizing pat-downs and strip searches. She can try to look calm and collected as much as she wants, but everyone knows she feels just like the worthless, pathetic inmate she now is. This thief is extremely worried about what she's gotten herself into. That is because a few years ago she got arrested for public intoxication and had to spend a weekend in jail. Although it was only 2 days, it still felt like an eternity to her. Every single hour in custody seemed to take longer than the one before it. So she has really no clue how she is going to handle the trouble she is in this time, namely getting arrested for trying to steal thousands of dollars in electronics. Especially because the police are now undoubtedly going to search her house for more stolen goods, and there is definitely enough to find there. She is most certainly not going to get her freedom back anytime soon, and she has absolutely no one to blame for that but herself.